In this video, we'll show you how to set the estimated target current. If your situation on your system is that your specimen stage is grounded all the time and you have no way to measure the actual target current. So step number one, I have my beam set to 2 kV, my filament is on, I have the filament current increased to where I have the correct emission current for this analyzer. You'll know what that is for your analyzer based on what you've been running it at. Let's go ahead and acquire a nope, not a survey. I want to acquire an elastic peak. 2 kV settings. And acquire. So we want to make sure that we're at the focal point of the analyzer. So we'll do an elastic peak. Okay, that's pretty close. Adjust it a little bit, but that's good. About 40,000 counts on my peak. That's good. My multiplier is 1040, which is correct. It's usually going to be between 1,000 and 1,100 volts for an elastic peak. And so we can assume that this is pretty close to 300 nanoamps of target current. So let's go ahead and stop our acquisition. So what you want to do is go to the Hardware Properties dialog box and select Estimate, and we have this ratio. The ratio is our emission current in microamps divided by 300 nanoamps. So let's go ahead and calculate this. We have 1264. That's 1,264 nanoamps divided by 300 nanoamps gives us a ratio of 4.21. Okay, so I'll put my ratio here at 4.21. Say OK. Now nothing's changed here. What we need to do is we have to close the electron gun dialog box and then open it again for it to update those settings. Okay, now we have our emission current, which is on this one the ratio is about 3 to 1. It's 1.2 microamps equals 300 nanoamps of target current. Most analyzers that ratio is going to be higher. It might be 3 microamps to 1, or the ratio is 10 to 1, for example. Sometimes it might be 5 or 6 microamps to get 300 nanoamps. Each filament and analyzer are different, but mostly it's the slight differences in the shape and the height of the filament will have an effect on the actual emission. Now it's very important that this is only done, this estimated target current is only set when you have after you've set the correct wane out percentage for both 2 kV and 3 kV. So to review on how to do that again is let's acquire our elastic peak. Alright, now let's increase the wane out a little bit and see what that does to our counts. Coming down. Okay, let's decrease the wane out and see what happens. Counts are coming up. You can tell by the elastic peak. Still coming up a little bit more. Coming down. So I want to find that peak. That's pretty close. And set point. Yes. Okay, now notice something else is that you'll get a slight difference in the reading here, a slight difference in the reading of the estimated target current from when you're acquiring and when you're not. And that's not the actual emission has changed. It's just a little bit of crosstalk between the A to D that reads in the signal and the A to D that reads in the emission current. So this is still pretty close at 319. I can drop that down just a hair, but let's say that's pretty close. Now I want to check it at 3,000. So I'm going to run up my beam voltage to 3,000 volts. Okay. Now I still have a 2 kV elastic peak setting in alignment. Go ahead and acquire that again. We will not see the elastic peak because the beam is now way out at 3,000 volts. However, it gives us a relative count rate that we can use. Okay, now we can do the same thing that we did before. We can increase the wane out and see what happens to the counts. They're coming down. Up. If I decrease my wane out, still coming up. Decrease the wane out, going down. So let's find that peak where we get the most counts. That's pretty close, and say set point. Okay. That sets it to 3 kV. So the wane out, you have to make sure that you have the wane out set point correct for both 2 kV and 3 kV when you set this estimated target current. Okay, so now I can use this estimated target current to get my 300 nanoamps. Instead of having trying to remember that emission ratio, it's much easier to just use the target current value. So that's how you set the estimated target current.